Alright guys, I'm back with another chapter in Judges. We're in Judges chapter 18, where the header reads, Idolatry in the tribe of Dan. And we're going to get right into it. Now in those days, Israel had no king, and the tribe of Dan was trying to find a place where they could settle, for they had not yet moved into the land assigned to them, when the land was divided among the tribes of Israel. So the men of Dan chose from their clans 5 capable warriors from the towns of Zorah and Eshtaol, to scout out a land for them to settle in. When these warriors arrived in the hill country of Ephraim, they came to Micah's house and spent the night there. While at Micah's house, they recognized the young Levite's accent, so they went over and asked him, "Who brought you here? And what are you doing in this place? Why are you here?" He told them about his agreement with Micah, and that he had been hired as Micah's personal priest. Then they asked, "Ask God whether or not our journey will be successful." "Go in peace," the priest replied, "for the Lord is watching over your journey." So the men went onto the town of Laish, where they noticed the people living carefree lives, like the Sidonians. They were peaceful and secure. The people were also wealthy because their land was very fertile, and they lived a great distance from Sidon and had no allies nearby. When the men returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, their relatives asked them, "What did you find?" The men replied, "Come on, let's attack them. We have seen the land and it's very good. What are you waiting for? Don't hesitate to go and take possession of it. When you get there, you will find the people living carefree lives. God has given us a spacious and fertile land lacking in nothing." So 600 men from the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war, set out for Zorah and Eshtaol. They camped at a place west of Kiriath Jearim in Judah, which is called Madineh Dan to this day. Then they went in from there into the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. The 5 men who had scouted out the land around Laish explained to the others, "These buildings contain a sacred ephod, as well as some household idols, a carved image, and a cast idol. What do you think you should do?" Then the 5 men turned off the road and went over to Micah's house, where the young Levite lived, and greeted him kindly. As the 600 armed warriors from the tribe of Dan stood at the entrance of the gate, the 5 scouts entered the shrine and removed the carved images, the sacred ephod, the household idols, and the cast idol. Meanwhile, the priest was standing at the gate with the 600 armed warriors. When the priest saw the men carrying all the sacred objects out of Micah's shrine, he said, "What are you doing?" "Be quiet and come with us," they said. "Be a father and priest to all of us. Isn't it better to be a priest for an entire tribe and clan of Israel than for the household of just one man?" The young priest was quite happy to go with them, so he took along the sacred ephod, the household idols, and the carved image. They turned and started on their way again, placing their children, livestock, and possessions in front of them. When the people from the tribe of Dan were quite a distance from Micah's house, the people who lived near Micah came chasing after them. They were shouting as they caught up with them. The men of Dan turned around and said to Micah, "What's the matter? Why have you called these men together and chased after us like this?" "What do you mean, what's the matter?" Micah replied. "You've taken away all the gods I have made and my priest, and I have nothing left." The men of Dan said, "Watch what you say. There are some short-tempered men around here who might get angry and kill you and your family." So the men of Dan continued on their way. When Micah saw that there were too many of them for him to attack, he turned around and went home. Then, with Micah's idols and his priest, the men of Dan came to the town of Laish, whose people were peaceful and secure. They attacked with swords and burned the town to the ground. There was no one to rescue the people, for they lived a great distance from Sidon and had no allies nearby. This happened in the valley near Beth-rehob. Then the people of the tribe of Dan rebuilt the town and lived there. They renamed the town Dan after their ancestor, Israel's son, but it had originally been called Laish. Then they set up the carved image, and they appointed Jonathan, son of Gershom, son of Moses, as their priest. This family continued as priests for the tribe of Dan until the exile. So Micah's carved image was worshipped by the tribe of Dan as long as the tabernacle of God remained at Shiloh. That's the end of chapter 18, guys. So there's some confusing aspects in this passage, I'm not going to lie, for me anyway. Understanding that this land is the promised land that God promised them. Excuse me. It does concern me that they attacked a peaceful tribe or a peaceful area, not knowing that, and they said that they were secure, that they were a happy people. It's almost like they took advantage of them simply because they had no friends. That's how I read it. That might not have been what its intention is, and sometimes that's why it's so important that we read different translations. I continue to tell people that I read the New Living Translation, and it's a study Bible, so it's written in very plain English, and so the words that they use might not translate the same, because, God tells us to take care of the meek and the needy, and it didn't say that these people were needy, but it did say that they were peaceful. And so there might be something in this translation that maybe doesn't speak to why this might be a just attack to the people. And again, I understand that God promised them this land. They identified someone that they could remove without, I guess I'll say without revenge, because they didn't have any allies. It should be an easy victory, I guess. But another one is that this man in this tribe, this priest, has identified that they're bringing along idols, and God still gave them success and victory. So I don't know if these idols are ones that are made of for God, like, I don't want to say in his image, because it says that you should be careful when making idols, and when it just refers to idols, I think negative. And so I'd be confused as to why they were given victory when they are aligning with potentially false images and idols. And so, again, this is another one. After I read this entire Bible, I'm definitely I want to read, I think it's what's called the Apostasies, which is the books of the Bible that were removed for a specific reason a while ago. It's like, I think, an additional 13 chapters or 13 books, just because I want to read the Bible in its entirety as it was originally made, with all of its books, and then I want to start reading different translations. And I think the reading of the different translations is super important, especially because of how many times the Bible's been translated. My pastor does a fantastic job of teaching us about the Greek words of origin that were used and how they got translated and why they got translated. Not obviously why they got translated so other people could communicate, but how they were translated and the root words of the original words' meaning. And I think that that's super important. I think it's super important because it gives greater context, and that's why I like my study Bible, because in this plain English I get more context. And so I think that's super important as I try to learn the Bible and apply it to my life, which I think is the intention of the Bible, for you to create that relationship. You walk hand in hand with God, you have greater understanding, you let the Holy Spirit work through you, and keep on pushing. But on that note, that is the end of chapter 18. I'll be back for the start of chapter 19 tomorrow in Judges, where the header reads, War against the tribe of Benjamin, the Levite and his concubine. And so I look forward to continuing Judges. Ooh, Judges is almost done. Looks like we will have only 21 chapters. So we are almost, and then we're going to move on to Ruth. So I'm pretty excited about that, guys. We're still moving along one day at a time. If we do it one day at a time, it should take us about 3.5 years, and we're already well over a year into it. So I'm still super excited about the fellowship. I'll see you guys for chapter 19 of Judges tomorrow. Have a great day and God bless.